The attempts by the left to cancel Joe Rogan have not stopped. And now it's going on like a month of nonstop smears against Joe Rogan. And my friends, it's not working. But neither is Joe and Spotify's attempt to placate the left. We've got Crosby, Stills, and Nash joining with Neil Young for the first time in decades in condemnation of Spotify and misinformation. We have a new op-ed in the New York Times from today from a woman who's talking about why she's pulling her podcast off of Spotify. Now, this is strange. Spotify announced they would be enacting the misinformation policy that all those dentists wanted, remember? Okay, they weren't all dentists, but there was that list of medical professionals and some dentists and veterinarians and podcasters who were outraged over Spotify lacking a misinformation policy. They said of all the big tech platforms, Spotify's the only one that doesn't have one. So Joe and Spotify came out and said, okay, we'll do this. Well, I can't say I'm surprised that now the Spotify CEO has come out issuing another statement, seemingly from a weakened point. We're getting more celebrities outraged, and it's not ended. Now, to be fair, this, in my opinion, it's still all kind of good news, and I'll tell you why. We have on Joe Rogan's post where he addressed the controversy and said, you know, a misinformation flag is great and he'll do better. He'll do his best and he just wants to have conversations. He did not apologize for his shows. He defended them. Celebrities came out en masse to support Joe Rogan. Even apparently The Rock himself. I haven't seen the comment, but a lot of people are pointing out The Rock was like, right on, brother, do your thing. You know what that means? When the White House comes out, and they're on the opposite side of popular mainstream celebrities, y'all are probably on the wrong side of history. I mean, it's not always true. You know, often we criticize celebrities for, you know, trying to chime in on politics. But this is something a little bit different. These are celebrities liking Joe Rogan. It's a cultural enforcement. When a celebrity comes out and says, here's my policy position, it's like, oh, shut up. But when there is a cultural move where all the big celebrities are now joining with Joe Rogan or praising him, sounds like the White House. These Joni Mitchell and Nils Lofgren and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, whatever, they're all on the wrong side of this one. And look, I know what that means. That means often when mainstream celebrities come out for leftist causes, those leftist causes win. And I think that's true in many circumstances. In this case, here's why I think it's a good thing. And then I'll show you what they're all saying. It's a good thing because Joe seems to be winning this one. Many celebrities are on his side, bigger A-listers. And that means that these leftists are canceling themselves off of mainstream platforms. Wow. You know, there's virtue signaling where people come out and say, I oppose this too, which is kind of what they're doing. Then there's what Michael Malice referred to as impotence signaling, where they're like, it's shocking that they're platforming people we don't like, just outright saying, we can't do anything about this. And then there's political self-immolation, where they're like, oh yeah, well, if you won't do anything about it, we'll cancel ourselves. And my response is, no, wait, don't. Seriously? Your response to the wide and the massive popularity of Joe Rogan is to cancel yourselves from a platform of 400 million users. Oh no. Oh, geez, don't remove yourself from the biggest music and podcast platform, or one of the biggest. I think iTunes is probably bigger in a lot of ways, but I don't know if Spotify is the biggest. Certainly not for podcasts, but oh no, people are pulling themselves out of the mainstream culture in the conversation. Good. When they couldn't ban Joe, they banned themselves. All right, fine. Hey, look, and you know what? I respect it. I really do. Because that's the way it should be. If I'm chilling at a bar, right, and there's a guy on stage and he's just doing a bunch of racist comedy. Like, I don't mean like edgy comedy. I mean like outright, he's just ragging on people based on race. You know what I can do? I can go and I'll ask. I'm like, hey, is this normal? Do you guys normally do this? And when the guy at the bar goes, yeah, and we pay the guy, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to leave. That's how it should be, right? I shouldn't be like, I demand your establishment do as I say. And I'll be like, I don't want to hang out at a bar that has that, right? That's the way it's supposed to be. There are things that I don't like culturally. There are people who have bad opinions that I tolerate. There's a ton of podcasts I think are absolute garbage and downright evil, but they're allowed to say their thing. You know what I do? I just don't listen to it. And you know what else I'll do is I'll argue against it. But if I go to an establishment and they're selling, you know, I don't know, they're throwing bees at people or something, and it's like, what are you doing? Stop doing that. You're hurting the bees, and like someone's going to get stung. Just leave. If people want it, let them enjoy themselves. So first we have, I think what may be one of the more shocking stories from yesterday, when the White House said more can be done. I mean, that's the gist of it. We don't know exactly what she meant. Jen Psaki, she said, ultimately our view is that it's a good step. It's a positive step, but there's more that can be done. What does that mean? You know, to be honest, I don't really think she meant anything by it. I think she's just spewing word vomit onto the microphone. She's just saying, it's virtue signaling. Yes, we agree. More can be done. Right. What that more is, meaningless. Now, while I can certainly say it seems like Joe is winning, there is some faltering on the side of Spotify. We have this story from this morning. Spotify CEO addresses Joe Rogan controversy. Now, the funny thing is, Joe and Spotify already addressed this. It didn't matter. They gave these people what they demanded. It did not matter. And it never will. Because look, these people don't listen to Joe's show. It's literally a comedian talking to people. That's it. It's conversations. Remarkable. We do something a little bit different on Timcast IRL, and I think it's one of the reasons we're probably not as big as Joe. There's something to be said about having just unfiltered, fun conversations. I do fact-checking in real time because I view the show as more of a political commentary show with guests. There are a lot of people that are like, Tim, your guests should just be talking nonstop. I'm like, yo, listen. They say that we don't give our guests enough time. I can respect that. Probably true. But the show we do at IRL isn't the same as Joe Rogan's show, and it's probably why people like his show better. I got to be honest. I have my keyboard, my monitor in front of me real time. We have Ian with his computer. We have Lydia at her computer, and we're all able to fact check the news and pull up sources. And I try to make sure the conversation is always tracking what is true and correct. We pre-plan everything. It's not the same as Joe's show. And I think for that, there are people who, you know, they would rather just get that unfiltered conversation where you can relax and just hear people speak. We do articles. It's very, very different. Maybe we could just, you know, pull. I don't know. That's just not who I am. I'm an article guy. I'm a news guy, right? But here's what's happening. First, I'd like to point out, Joe made a video on Instagram where he talked about what's happening. And CNN.com is showing this. And now you can see how healthy and happy Joe looks. The reason I'm pointing it out is, as many of you may have seen, that when Joe came out with this video about COVID, said he took, a bunch of medications, including ivermectin, and he took monoclonal antibodies. CNN's video version appears to be altered. And based on my analysis, I believe it is true and correct. They did alter it. I want to be careful with my language here. But here at CNN.com, I'm showing you this one. No, Joe looks happy and healthy. But this is interesting. The CEO is issuing a second statement on this one. Spotify CEO Daniel Ek addressed the controversy around Joe Rogan on Wednesday, saying the company is trying to balance creative expression with the safety of our users. Just stop. There's no safety of your users. You've got that song from, what was it, Eazy-E, where he talks about seriously harming marginalized people. I'll just put it that way. Because if I actually said what the lyrics were, YouTube would probably ban me. So don't spare me with that stuff. It's not about that. We know it's not about that. Stop placating or trying to, because you can't. Stop trying to placate these people. Of course, this is a very complicated issue, X said in the company's post-earnings call on Wednesday. But I'm really proud of the steps that we took following the concerns raised by the medical and scientific communities. As for Spotify's business, the company reported that it ended 2021 with 180 million paid subscribers. Look at that. They saw the stock drop more than 20% after hours on Wednesday, following its fourth quarter earnings, which presented weak guidance for its growth. Eck mentioned that Rogan is the company's #1 podcast in more than 90 markets. What does that even mean? I got to be honest with everybody. For one, I think the story is ridiculously good for Joe Rogan. I really do. I think there are some concessions I'm not happy with. I think the left will not stop. But man, the onslaught of 4 months of never-ending publicity for Joe is probably just going to make his show bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, even me doing a show about this. Look, there are people who watch Timcast Style, watch my show. They don't watch other shows at the same time. Not everybody that is able to watch one show does it. There are a lot of people who probably watch my videos, don't listen to Joe Rogan all that much, maybe because he's not on YouTube, or maybe because they don't like the unfettered conversation. I don't know. There's some people maybe just don't like it. But there's some people maybe don't know about it. And now the endless coverage over Joe, it's just going to make his show bigger. But I want to say, everyone keeps citing this 11 million number, viewership for Rogan's podcast. I have no reason to believe that's not the number. That's the numbers that were released. But I will just say, when the numbers are obfuscated and you can't check them yourself, I don't know if I believe them. Nielsen ratings. This show got 5 million views. No, it didn't. Shut up. Big Bang Theory got 30 million views. No, it didn't. I mean, look, maybe it's getting a lot, but what they do is they have the Nielsen boxes in all the houses and they track what people are watching on TV. And then they try and estimate in these markets like a poll more than anything. Nowadays, you can look at my videos and see what the ratings are. I don't need to tell you that we are crushing CNN because you can look at my video and see that it's got 250,000 views, like a video from yesterday or whatever. It averages like 200 to 300K, sometimes more. And CNN's total key demo viewership for the entire day is only 230 or so, 220,000 people. So in one segment, we crush CNN. With Joe Rogan's podcast, we don't see that. When Eck mentions that Rogan is the company's #1 podcast in more than 90 markets, what does that mean? I'm really curious to know if Joe's show has gotten bigger or smaller since he left, since he went exclusive with Spotify. I gotta say, my friends, I believe that Spotify is probably extremely happy with all of this. I really, really do mean it. Look, let me show you the story from the New York Times. Opinion: why I've decided to take my podcast off Spotify. Oh no! Oh no! What is this? What show is being pulled from Spotify? Where is it? The Fear Factor, the Joe Rogan Experience, blah blah blah. Co-founder. Where does she mention? Okay, let me actually search for this to see where she mentioned she's pulling it. Okay, here we go. Okay. Oh no. She says, I have a podcast where I talk to interesting people. Until Tuesday, it was available on Spotify. But I've decided to make another stand, a small one. Joining Mr. Young, Miss Mitchell, and a growing group of creators, I took the Roxanne Gay Agenda and its archives off Spotify. Oh no. I'm sure Spotify cares. I'm sure they don't care. When Joe Rogan moved from iTunes to Spotify, there was a huge risk there, just like Howard Stern going to Sirius. Now, my understanding is that Howard Stern did retain a large audience because people followed him to the platform, but it did not, he did not transfer 100%. Let me tell you guys, when Joe Rogan was on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, every platform, his viewership, I believe it is fair to say, was likely greater than it was when he moved to Spotify. So many people said, I watched him on YouTube. I don't watch him on Spotify. I don't watch him anymore. A lot of people pointed out, I can't watch on my TV anymore. Used to pull up YouTube on my TV and turn on the podcast and sit back and watch it. You can't do that anymore. Joe Rogan had the #1 position on iTunes permanently, just by being the biggest show. So whenever a new person would open up Apple Podcasts or any podcast platform for that matter, it would be like every major app store, podcast service, whatever, was telling you to listen to Joe Rogan. So his ratings were probably through the roof. I could only imagine, this is what I said before, that Joe's viewership probably declined when he went to Spotify. There's no such thing as bad press. Many people who probably listen to Joe and maybe stopped are now going like, oh, what's going on with Joe? Who are these people? We're hearing that his viewership is around 11 million per episode. Is that Spotify only? Because if it is, with clips, Joe's probably getting more views than he ever did. I don't know the exact number of downloads he was getting on podcasts on like iTunes and stuff, but it certainly wasn't 11 million. No, for real. So I've talked to some podcast networks and they've talked about their estimates for various podcast shows. And I don't want to give anyone's numbers away. It's not my place because I do have some private information, but it's a lot less than you realize. Some of the top podcasts in the world only get a few 100,000 downloads, like listens, right? So I'll tell you, for us, I got no problem shouting out our numbers. So on Timcast IRL, we get, between like 80 and 100,000 between iTunes and Spotify. With about 50,000 to 60,000 listens on iTunes, we fluctuate between like the 150, like we're typically in the top charts for iTunes. So we were for a period getting like 60,000 downloads on iTunes, just 60,000, mind you. We were like the 150th biggest podcast on iTunes in the United States. For the Tim Pool Daily Show, which this episode runs on, there was a period where I even hit number 34 and I was getting about 50,000 downloads per episode. Now, for the show, when you combine our Spotify downloads, our Google Podcast, and iTunes, we get around 100K. And that puts us really high up on the global rankings. Just 100K. That's crazy, isn't it? Timcast IRL on YouTube will get around, right now, 350K live playbacks, and then like 220,000 or like 200,000 VOD playbacks. It's weird. I try to understand how YouTube does the metrics, but we end up all in all with maybe like 1.3 to 1.5 million total views across the board. That includes clips on Timcast IRL. That on YouTube, I guess that's pretty big. So for Joe Rogan to be getting 11 million on just Spotify, that says to me that his show is bigger than ever. But what I'm getting at is, when all this controversy started, Joe was probably getting less than he was before he went exclusive on Spotify. And with this major burst in attention, like the New York Times now writing about it, they're not winning. Celebrities are cheering on Joe. They're just giving him more and more press, and they're canceling themselves. Take a look at this. David Crosby, Stephen Stills asked to remove their music from Spotify, including Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young albums. They're all canceling themselves. Joe's still on Spotify. They didn't ban him. They banned themselves. So listen, a lot of people, they're like, when Joe Rogan, concedes, Tim says it's tact, but when people don't stand up for themselves, he says they're being cowards or whatever. Like, yo, listen. I think it is wrong that Spotify and Joe conceded this point 100%. I think it's wrong. I think they're still going after him. They're not stopping. Yes, it's a bad thing. But for everything I just explained, Joe Rogan is still winning this one. When I say it's tact, what I mean is they recognize they're going to lose a little bit to win in the long run, right? So it is losing, but for a strategic reason. Sometimes, as I often say, you have to retreat in battle. But Joe Rogan did defend his show and he stood up for himself. I've also stated there's a lot of people, I totally understand, people who can't quit their jobs. When I say people should leave their jobs, I'm not saying like literally every single person all the time should just be like, well, I can't, I'll be homeless, but here I go. I'm saying people should do what they can to try and find a way to get out when they can, while they can. Now do it. Start looking for other work. Start making those moves. Challenge the system. The media is just absolutely imploding. I don't know if you guys saw the CNN scandal, but let me show you this one. CNN is facing calls to fire Brian Stelter for not exposing Zucker-Gollust affair. Blah, blah, blah. I don't care about that scandal right now, but the point is, Brian Stelter comes out and he's like, why do people trust Joe Rogan more than us? It is because Joe Rogan is a regular guy who has honest conversations, and y'all are duplicitous. You are manipulators. You faked a quarantine. You guys know this, and I'm going to say it. I'll never stop saying it. Chris Cuomo pretended to be in quarantine. We know he faked it. Where's Brian Stelter to come out and be like, breaking news, CNN faked a quarantine of one of its hosts? Because Brian Stelter is a pathetic shell of a man. He should be fired. He is a propagandist, a manipulator, a liar, and all that stuff. But you know what? That's besides the point. This is why they don't trust you, Brian. This is why CNN's ratings are so miserable. So I pulled up their ratings from this past month. They get around 1 million views per day. That's it. This show and Timcast IRL, if you were to combine all the numbers, we get like, what are we at? Like 2 million per day or something like that? Double CNN? Don't get me wrong, CNN has their YouTube presence, so they're still getting more views. But with all of their daytime shows, all of them, what is that? 24 hours of content? 1 million? Yo, I have like 3 hours of content, and we're getting double that. So it just goes to show, man. With CNN doing more content, they should be getting more views. Because they have volume. If one person watches 1 hour, that person can watch the second hour. If I'm only producing 3, people can only watch 3. There's a smaller inventory. I'm not saying this to brag that, we're so big and so great or anything like that. No, I'm pointing out CNN is just imploding outright. Take a look at this story. Take a look at the op-eds on Joe Rogan. Take a look at Crosby. Take a look at all these people screaming, saying they're pulling off the platform. And let me just explain. Joe Rogan is winning. The White House, that's crazy they would say that, but they're on the wrong side of this one. Joe's winning. I have friends who are very lefty. I have some of my best friends. And it's funny when the left is like, Tim's lying. He doesn't have left-wing friends. Like, dude, I'm from Chicago. What do you think? Like, a really good friend of mine. Who's very lefty, a member of the LGBT community, and she's a huge fan of Joe Rogan. It's weird, isn't it? I thought Joe was all of these awful things, homophobic, racist, transphobic. No. They're lies. People know Joe's a good dude. They know he's a good dude. They know he's funny. They know he's curious. They know he's honest. They know he tries. And they know he's a guy who's just having conversations. But you know what we're really getting out of this? Final thought on this one. They never wanted a regular person to have this voice, to have this power. They want to be the suit-wearing authorities who say, we're smarter than you, we're better than you, and don't you dare oppose us. And then along comes fumbling, bumbling Joe Rogan, the jester in the courtroom, as Jordan Peterson said, the fool. And he meant that, to Joe, respectfully. When the king can't stand the jester in the comedy, it's you can't stand the fool. It exposes what you really are. Joe's just a funny guy. He's just a regular dude making jokes, asking questions, and they can't stand it. They're freaking out. It goes to show you that they've lost control of the mic, of the narrative, and they're in full-on panic mode. And as such, let them cancel themselves. I hope it works out for the best. I really do. But, there have been a lot of times where I've seen things that made me feel like we were losing, that the establishment was, too powerful. And some people have been like, why the 180, Tim? You've changed your opinion. Well, yeah. Look at this. Look at what's going on with all the polls and the fundraising. Yo, they are absolutely desperate. The censorship attempts aren't working. They're trying as hard as they can, and they're spiraling out of control. The more they try, the more they fail. I'm just like, yo, they're in quicksand and they're thrashing violently. Yeah, they're going to sink. Sounds good to me, I guess. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.